No. All right, welcome everybody to our football coaches playoff preview show.
Yeah.
There we go. We got, let's see here, Ryan Eigenberger, Len Luedtke, Braden Mitchell, Jake Nault-Miller, Jerry Sins, Jay Anderson, Logan Rosem, Kyle Stofle, Joe Parr, Matt Binsfeld, Jason Tubbs, all coming on the show today. And we're going to have a lot of fun with these guys. Going to talk about their team's playoff futures and what they think of their bracket that they've been in, how their team's going to prepare this week for the playoffs, and so on and so forth. But before we get there, we've got 19 minutes to talk to you all. First, Coach Ryan Eigenberger of Stevens Point comes on at 1:20, but we gave ourselves, kind of carved out ourselves just a little bit of time to kind of fill you in on some stuff. So the first one, Dan, I'm going to turn to you because I got to change my headset over there. The 224 qualifying teams, just kind of update people on the process that we worked on last night for about 2 hours on that, and just give a basic introductory course on how that qualifying process works.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a late night last night. We were typing on computers, we were hand scribbling notes, and we used the WIAA guidance that's printed directly off their website, and we went through step 1, step 2, step 3. We went all the way down it, ABC, went line by line by line very carefully. Like Jason said, it took us a good 2.5 hours. I didn't get home till 1 o'clock last night. Back to Wausau. But it was good to see that when the brackets came out that we had the right qualifying field. At least I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, the last team in was Ashwaubenon. They were the very last team that qualified. I don't even remember what step it was. It was the defeated conference opponents' overall records, I believe.
Step 4, I think, in that particular group. So 3.
Yeah. And I know that
3.4.
And I know that there's a lot of people who are messaging you because I see you talking to them over here about why was Pewaukee still in? They should have been eliminated before that. And it's very much it's different than like the NFC or the NFL tiebreaker procedures, right?
Right.
Because instead of eliminating the bottom teams on each step,
right, the
WIAA just qualifies teams, and then everybody else who didn't qualify in that step goes on to the next step.
Yeah, so as an example, the step that a lot of people are talking about is the teams you beat in conference, what is their win percent? And no doubt, Edgewood and Pewaukee had a very poor win percent in that category.
2-19 or something.
Yep. But in the large group, in the step prior, these teams who had the best win percentages, they moved on to the qualifying field. So they were taken out and put in, and then you had everyone else left. Even Pewaukee and Edgewood, who had very poor stats in that particular step, but they still move in with everyone else who's left, and then you move to the next step.
Yes.
And the next step then in this particular case was more of an advantage for Edgewood and Pewaukee than it was for many of the other teams, and that's how it works.
Yeah, and we were stumped on that a little bit last night.
My head was spinning, man.
Yeah, we spent a good 15, 20 minutes talking about the exact language of
just that
of
one
the paper.
step. Just that one step, yeah.
Yeah, and we had to crunch all those numbers. I mean, there's a sheet full of names, and like we had to manually do it and double check it, and yeah, it's something that we feel confident about going forward unless it changes drastically, which the WIA doesn't change drastically year to year.
Yeah, so our interpretation of the rules, we hit all 224, and that's not really an accomplishment. It's just a matter of math and English comprehension.
It's true.
But yet still, as we're talking about this, I had to ask in the room 3 separate times, all right, say that again to me.
Yeah.
Because it is a little convoluted in that case. Okay, thank you, Dan, for that. There was a late update. The WI revealed a mistake in the 8-player field. Gilman does not qualify for the playoffs in the 16-team field, and instead the Clayton Bears qualify. I don't know why.
That's heartbreaking.
Well, it is because the Pirates woke up today exuberant, most likely, like, man, wow, that's great. We didn't think we were in. We looked at the field that Zaleski put out last night. They didn't have us in, but we're in. All right. And then, no, we're not.
Yeah, and
I don't know what the mistake was, but the WI has revealed it in some way.
Yeah, there's a lot of forfeits in 8-man, right?
Something to do with it, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't talk about forfeits very much in the tiebreaker rules, and 8-man is very much a win percentage type situation.
Yeah.
So I could see how there's confusion there. It's still new. The tournament's way too small. Every team has one loss basically. I think maybe one or two have two losses. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, it's definitely in 11-man. You have teams that are under 500. I think we might have a 3-6 team in there. Like it's bare bones. Like it's getting convoluted almost, right? Mm-hmm. And then in 8-man, you have all these teams that had a 6-2 season that dominated a lot of their teams, and they don't make it.
Yeah, they were much. They were like, we're a playoff team. We feel like it. Our record shows it, and but yet not. I think that will. I think as we head into 2026, it's just my opinion, but kind of reading the tea leaves, plus just using some actual intelligence and logic, it looks almost certain that field is going to expand to 32 in 2 years.
Yeah, and everything that we just talked about, that was the easy part of this. That was the part that was easy to
because it's
to
black and white.
comprehend.
It is just written English and mathematics in that case. The seeds. So let's move on. We look in Division 1, and we had these, and VIP members saw these for the last couple of bracket releases. We had Waunakee, Franklin, Verona, and Marquette all sitting as 1 seeds, and that turned out to be the case. The 1 versus 8, Dan, we killed it on the 1 versus 8 matchups around the state. So that's interesting to me because we have been asking ourselves, and as I'm sure a lot of you have all morning, well, why did my team get a 6 or a 7 and this other team get a 2 or a 3? And oftentimes we have our hands up in the air also this morning.
Yeah, I did
afternoon.
Yeah, I did a lot of shoulder shrugging as the brackets were released, and I'll be honest, I don't know all 224 teams. I don't know all the brackets by heart, but there's a lot of common sense that goes into some of this, and I will preface this with 90 to 95% of this looks probably right. Like I agree with a lot of
for
it.
For sure. It's always the outliers that people talk about and the things that look weird.
I think there's some teams that have legitimate beef, just based on our seed scores that are very accurate throughout the year in all the sports. And there were some misses that, like, we've been talking about it of, we're going down, we're looking at the computer, and we're looking at all the seed scores, and this team is ahead of this team, despite being underneath them in every category.
So the case study that I've been poring over this morning are now into the afternoon. And again, we're going to talk to Stevens Point head coach Ryan Eigenberger coming up in 12 minutes. Maybe he can shed some light on it. I'm sure he's happy about it, happy-ish maybe. DC Everest and Stevens Point, they're in the same conference. DC Everest a conference champion, not an undefeated conference champion. So I believe what we were instructed earlier was that the hand of God doesn't move the defeated conference champion as it would an undefeated conference champion. We're going to get to another case study, though, where that didn't happen. But DC Everest, a 7 seed, as a conference champion. Stevens Point, a 6 seed. And during the season, in every mathematical metric that we were told to pay attention to, your own win percent, your opponent's win-loss percent, your defeated opponent's win-loss percent. In every mathematical category, DC Everest is better than Stevens Point. And yet they were seated under Stevens Point. So that's a big question mark and one that we can't find an answer to today.
Yeah. I came in here ranting a little bit. Like I was heated right? Probably not as much as some of the coaches that saw where they ended up.
Well, and we've got DC Everest coach Braden Mitchell at 140. We're going to ask him, see if he's heated.
Yeah, and I came in here pounding the table about conference champs should have a home game. I honestly believe that, especially if there's tiebreakers head-to-head in this case, right, with Everest and Spash. There's no reason that a conference that is created by the WIAA, Football Council, it's not optional. These teams have to play in these conferences, right? And they do a good job of putting the similar-sized schools geographically together.
Yeah.
That if you're the best team out of there, you should have a home playoff game. You should be a 4 seed. And that's not part of the rules, right? That's
not. It is not in the list.
That's just me talking here.
Yeah.
But we had Everest as a 4 seed for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Seed score-wise.
Yeah, and I will say after yesterday's games were tallied, Hudson turned out to have a better seed score than Everest. So that makes sense then that Everest, without mentioning their champion status in the conference, would be seeded below Hudson then, because they genuinely Hudson has a better seed score. So that then, in our math, would have moved Everest to the 5 line, but not to the 7 line. We can't figure that part out.
Sure. And again, the smell test, I don't disagree with Wanakee, Hudson, Madison Memorial, Middleton. Like, they're very good teams.
Makes sense, right? Those are the top 4. And so it makes sense to have Everest, as we thought it leaving last night, at the 5. Now, certainly not below Stevens Point.
Right. And Chippewa Falls, Everest, that's like if those two teams played on the field, it'd be very close, I think. And I don't know what the seed scores ended up being, but they're 7 seed. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. Everest, won the conference, which does not matter with seeding, of course.
Doesn't. No.
But it was a really good game. We were kind of hoping that we would get a rematch in the 4-5 line.
Well, I mean, we still could. We still could get a rematch in level 2. Interesting you mentioned Chippewa Falls beat DC Everest on October 4th, a couple weeks ago, 5. So 1-score game. So that makes sense that they would be seed neighbors even on the 5-6 line, but not to be the case. The other one, Dan, I want to move to is in Division 7. And this one I think has people all across the state scratching their heads.
Yeah, I don't get this one.
Because we were told in no uncertain terms by WIAA Commissioner Tom Shafransky, and I'll have some efforts to have Tom on our show here on Wednesday, and we'll ask him. I will ask him, and you can, if he'll take the call, and he usually does. Potosi-Cassville is a 3 seed. They are an undefeated conference champion. We were told in no uncertain terms by Tom last year that every effort is made to move that team to the 1 spot. In a bracket somewhere nearby their geographical region if it can't be right in their group. Potosi-Cassville has the top seed score. They're the number one in seed score in the state in Division 7.
And they have been. Like, this isn't a new...
No, they're 9-0, undefeated, conference champion, and they've got really good metrics. They have played really good teams, including Blackhawk Warren. Who now they'll play again in a level 1 game. Bangor, probably a good team too, but their seed score is down the list. I mean, they are mid-pack, and yet they are the 1 seed in that group
with a loss,
with 2 losses on the season. So a 2-loss conference champion. Bangor is the 1 and a undefeated conference champion, which we were told the hand of God comes in and moves that to the appropriate 1 line somewhere. Didn't happen this year, and it didn't get moved to a 2. It landed on a 3 as the number 1 team in Division 7.
Yeah, both Potosi-Cassville and Blackhawk Warren have reasons to gripe here. Mm-hmm. Blackhawk Warren as a 6 seed is a little crazy to me. Potosi as a 3 seed is probably more egregious because they were the undefeated conference champion. And we talked to Tom about this last year. I want to say maybe Tom said that they don't want to have 2 undefeated conference champs in the same group of 8.
Yeah,
and so they try to move them, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he said that they needed to be number 1, but Potosi-Cassville at number 3, it doesn't pass the smell test. It doesn't pass the computer test. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know what metric. And again, we were given the metrics. Now we've we've reverse engineered it and able to we believe solve it. We've solved it in all the other sports. We had it solved last year in this sport. The one thing, Dan, is it does say on the list, I don't remember reading this in years past, but it does say on the list, one of the things that can happen to determine a seed is a random computer draw. So if that's the case, and the computer just randomly drew these teams, then okay, then maybe. Then maybe. Because it's on the list this year.
Yeah, it's at the very bottom.
Computer
it's like
random draw.
8th step. Yeah.
Which would, I could, okay, tell me that's what happened, then all right, then we're good.
Are we talking to the Iola coach today? No. Iola, big winners today. They ended up with a 2 seed.
Got catapulted.
And they are a 2-loss team, correct? They lost 2 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Edgar and Auburndale. Did they lose to Abbotsford also?
Well, yeah, there are 3 conference losses then.
Yeah. Oof.
Right? Yeah, let me verify. What we're talking Division 6 there.
Division 7. Iola
Division 7. Okay.
Yeah. Number 1 Edgar, number 2 Iola, 3 Crivets is a really good team.
All right. Well, I got a couple of things to look up here. So we've got our first call in just a couple of minutes. So we'll wrap up these case studies, which again we're with you out there. These are some question marks. Yeah, 4-3 Iola in conference. So they lost every team above them: Abbotsford, Auburndale, Edgar.
Yeah.
And land on the 2 line as again I look at the seed score. I mean
they're down.
They're down the list, man. Let's see here. The math shows 15th best team in Division 7, according to a seed score. So the should be seeded 15th overall, and they're seeded no worse than 8th in this particular draw. Computer random draw.
Yeah. Shiocton beat them. Shiocton's the 5 seed in that. At least I think. I mean, maybe Iola beat Shiocton. I don't remember.
Yeah, Iola's only losses were the 3 I mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
But maybe this group of 8. Pittsville's obviously seed scores underneath them.
Yep.
Roncalli, Shiocton. Maybe the seed scores just weren't very good in this particular quadrant.
Well, okay. That could be the only reasonable explanation, but I'm looking here, and that's not also that's just not the answer anyway. We talked to speaking of Pittsville, we talked to Pittsville's head coach Jeremy Dewar last night on our playoff clinching show. I don't even know what we called it, right?
Yeah.
Just our week 9, catching you all up on what was happening statewide. We had games all over the screen. And
you called this matchup.
ended up talking about it to Coach Jeremy Dewar. Of course, I put him in the playoffs right away, and I turned out to be right. I told Coach, okay, well, congratulations on the playoff entry. By the way, you'll play Edgar on Friday. And he had a little bit of a chuckle, and then we let him go. But it'll be a tough one for Pittsville Friday over at Edgar.
Yeah.
Tough.
And just looking at just brackets here and there were a lot of teams that because one team made it, it changed a lot of the enrollment numbers. So teams went up or they went down in division. Yeah,
well, that'll be the last one here, and then Katie's going to work on getting Ryan on the phone for us. Mosney was a good case study on that. Without performance improvement factor, Mosney would have been the smallest school in Division 3. But because of performance improvement factor, a couple teams were elevated a division. Mosney now sits as the largest school in Division 4. Mosney has had some recent struggles in the football playoffs, and we'll talk to Kyle Stofle later, who's on his way to Fargo. He's going to go watch his son play for the Jackrabbits up at NDSU. So we're going to talk to him on I-94 somewhere in Minnesota later on. But an advantage for Mosney in that way, because you're the biggest fish in that pond.
Yeah. And one more thing before we jump into the coaches.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to the program this morning. They did a really good job with that. Probably the best that we've seen in football or basketball. Mm-hmm. Travis Wilson, Brad Hansen, obviously, and the other guy from Channel 9. Keegan, yeah. Mm-hmm. Really professional, really good job. Really well done.
Yep. Just, we had some pretty wild name mispronunciations the last couple of years. That was trimmed back to just a couple. So there's improvement there. I just know living in those towns, you're watching with great anticipation, and then it's a little deflating when they say your town's name wrong. Olivestrom. Yeah. Just as one. But, overall, the show has gotten better. This is the 4th time now, I believe. I was on the first couple, but
We've come a long way from the bouncing names coming onto the brackets.
Yeah.
With the music on loop.
Yeah. I told you all last night. Go ahead and give Ryan a call if you haven't already. Yep. We'll get Ryan going here. Yeah, I told the guys last night. That's still my favorite bracket reveal was the 2:30 in the morning, where the brackets just popped up on the website, and I thought that was the best because then I could look at them all night long. I came in, got a little bit of sleep. But times have changed, and we involve ourselves in letting you know the playoff field. So again, we were here till almost 1 a.m. I had 4 hours and 50 minutes of sleep last night, which is fine. I mean, this is football playoffs.
I woke up at 9:45, just in time for the brackets, I would say.
Yeah, well, you did well.
Yeah.
I woke up because the sunlight was coming through because we've got 2 dogs, and dogs will blast open the bedroom door and then wake us up. So, all right, well, let's do it. Let's get this show on the road as we bring in coach number 1 of the day, Stevens Point's Ryan Eigenberger. Coach, congratulations on being in this year's 2024 playoff field.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Jason, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Can you hear him?
Yeah.
Dan? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, excellent. All right, Coach. Well, let's talk about your playoff seed as it is. You are seeded number 6 in the playoffs coming up, and that means a road trip to Madison Memorial. Just tell us about the prospects as being the 6th seed to open up Level 1 playoffs on Friday.
We were hoping to maybe push for a 4. We knew after we lost to Week 8 it would be tough to get another home game, but we're excited. Honestly, we're excited to play a team that's a little different. We always kind of get stuck in the same teams, and we still have, conference teams in our group of 8, and you can't really avoid those. But knowing that we also played Chip Falls and the Hudson this year, we're happy to continue to play those same teams. But it's cool to have the opportunity to play a new team. The Madison Memorial is, it's a tough program. So going on the road down there, we're excited to have that kind of new environment. As far as I know, I don't think Spash has ever played Memorial and maybe only 1 game down in Madison, at a high school stadium down there. So it's cool to have that opportunity for our players and for the program to be able to go down there.
Able to fend off Marshfield last night to finish off senior night, or if it was parents' night, one of the 2 last night, and send the home crowd out with the big win over Marshfield. But everybody, Coach, is still talking about that week before. It's a game he came out on the losing end, but one of the most fantastic games in WIAA football history. Just take us through that game over at Everest. Turned out to be a double overtime, but a game, your guys, with a 21-point comeback. What did you learn about your team during that game?
I learned that, we got a lot of toughness and we got a lot of grit in us, and that's what we talked about at the end of the year. Football is a tough sport for tough people. That was Coach Fickle's message at the WFCA clinic. And I kind of like that. So we talked about that with our players, and I think in a Week 8 game, that's what you want to have. You want to develop that toughness, that mental, that physical, that emotional toughness throughout the year. And our guys were able to prove that. They have that, and they have the ability to be able to bounce back, stay true to the course, kind of believe in the system, believe in the program, believe in each other, and be able to come back from a pretty big deficit late in that game.
Last one for me. I've got Dan Ross next to me, Coach, but the last one for me is just tell us about now the week of preparation and your experience with that, and what you and the guys will go through this week as you get ready for that first playoff game.
Well, today we had that film exchange period, and then as a coaching staff, we're in the middle of sitting here over at Spash, breaking down some of our film, offensively, defensively, and looking at what Memorial does. So we go through our same process. We're just a little bit behind from where we're usually at this point. So we'll just sit down here a little longer and be able to make sure that we get all caught up, and then we get ready to kind of go through that install. Kind of introduce our players, start introducing the Memorial tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night time, and then we go into our normal game week preparation. So, at this point in the year, we don't practice quite as long. We like to try to be efficient out there, keep our guys fresh, keep them engaged while still, being physical, because that's what we like to preach is our physicality. So making sure that we're staying safe, we're staying healthy while still maintaining low pad levels, still maintaining physicality. And get ready for a playoff football game. There's nothing better than that on Friday night in the fall.
Absolutely. Hey, Coach, Dan Ross here. when we came in, we saw the bracket reveal this morning, just like everybody else. We knew who the teams were, but you just never know what the brackets are going to be, right? And one of the things that really caught our eye was maybe the lack of respect for the Wisconsin Valley Conference. A lot of 6, 7, 8 seeds in there. How does that sit with you? You're very close to it. I'm really interested in your opinion.
Well, I do think that we have a very tough conference. I do think as well. At the same time, we've underperformed recently in the playoffs. So the only thing that we can do as a conference, as a group of coaches, and I got a lot of respect for our conference coaches. Every week it's a battle. They do a great job. And we just have been coming up short. I mean, if you think about, we played Kimberly. We won one game last year. Played Kimberly tough for three quarters in level 2. Came up short. 2 years ago, Everest went out to Hudson, I remember, and played them tough and came up short right at the end. So we just had some bad bounces in the playoffs. Where I think if our conference wants to start turning that tide, we want to win some games. So there are moments, not for us, for Everest and West are still in our group of 8, but we become some fans of Marshfield here to want them to do well in the playoffs. Fans of the other conference teams as we get into some playoff time, and we just want to see our conference do well as long as we're not on the other side of that.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, Coach, about it's nice to play a new team. Do you think that playing somebody, obviously the two schools don't meet a whole lot, it's 2 hours apart, right? Do you think that helps your team more that Madison Memorial hasn't seen you, or do you think it's a disadvantage or no advantage?
I think it could go both ways for that. I'm not sure there's a huge advantage either way. I think to not have some of that full familiarity, almost the game plays out maybe a little more normal sometimes when you're playing those teams that are used to playing. Those tricks that you shake your sleeve and they fall out. Those guys are used to them. So now maybe some of the things that we like to do that we have to disguise a little bit more. Maybe we don't have to disguise it quite as much. We can do some of those bread and butter type things that maybe, a non-common opponent, or an uncommon opponent, I should say, isn't quite as used to. So I think that's maybe the only advantage that lies there. But otherwise, our guys are just excited to have that opportunity to go down south and play a different team. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily advantage-wise, just kind of cool to go visit a new venue, see some new players, and have that competition.
Well, I'm cheering for a Stevens Point DC Everest rematch in round 2 over here at Gerke. That's what I'm cheering for.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I mean, obviously that's the way that we get a home game there, level 2. So we got to take care of business first on level 1, and then hopefully we can be back at home.
We've got our final edition of Spash Panthers Hard Knocks, our football series. We've been following Coach Eigenberger's Panthers all year long. Dan Lau, right next door, across the wall from us, working feverishly to get our final episode done. Coach, thank you so much for letting us in with your team this year, and best of luck on Friday night.
Yeah, thank you, and shout out to Dan Lau. He did a great job. I think he does an awesome work at putting those together. So, and your whole team there and everything you guys do, we appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity to follow our guys around. Never a distraction, but sometimes you're like, Ryan, we are only a high school team, but it's such a cool thing that you guys do. So we really appreciate that.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck on Friday.
Thank you very much.
All right, Stevens Point Panthers head coach Ryan Eigenberger talking to us about his team's 6th seed. Again, they will travel to Madison Memorial, a game you will watch live right here on Zaleski Sports, assuming Memorial has an actual football stadium. I've never been there.
I know nothing about them. But, I mean, they're a team that you see win some tournament games every year. Big school, obviously. But you know what? Stevens Point is also a big school.
Coach mentioned Marshfield a couple times. Katie's going to work on getting defensive coach Len Luedtke on the phone. Denny Gadel, head coach of that football team, is on his way to Bemidji State, where his son Joey plays football over there. So he's going to watch the game. But we talked to Len last year, too, so this is not that unusual.
That's right. I remember that.
Yep. And quite honestly, Len may know more about football than Denny anyway, so maybe that's okay. I know both guys personally, so I think I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll say, Division I, Division II tournament games, generally pretty competitive. The gap of athletic guys in the team, much smaller gap, the big schools, than it is at Division 6, Division 7, right? You don't see a lot of running clock games in Division 1 first-round games.
No, you won't, because everybody's capable of keeping at least a close pace to the whole thing. Where you mentioned some of those smaller teams, things get away pretty quickly, and with 18 guys on the sideline, there's just not you can't turn to somebody else. But we turn now to Marshfield, and we had Marshfield all along the last 3 weeks at New Richmond in our bracket projections, and that did play out in that way. And an opponent Marshfield has seen this year. As we bring in Coach Len Luedtke. Coach, thanks for joining us, and let's just get right into it. You are at New Richmond on Friday, a team that you saw this year. Matter of fact, the only points you guys put on the board were a member of your defense that night. So tell us about facing New Richmond again this year.
Well, we're excited about the opportunity, number one, to play in the playoffs, obviously. And New Richmond is a good team. They're a well-coached team. I had the privilege this offseason to go listen to their offensive coordinator, which kind of helped a little bit with a couple of the things we did in the first round of things to try to take away what they do with their RPOs and their offense. We're looking forward to the challenge. They are obviously a better team than they were in August, but so are we. And, heading back there to start the playoffs again this year. So,
yeah, of course, what I'm talking about, it was a Brooks Hinson pick six. Brooks had a nice defensive play for you last night as well over at Stevens Point. So with Denny in the car going over to a college football game today, tell us more about your defense and these guys that have been able to really play strong and stout all year, but under your leadership for a number of years. Why is that?
Well, I think, as a coaching staff, we do a good job of finding the strengths of our individual players and then adjusting that scheme, to put them in the best position possible to emphasize their strengths, and not be stubborn and just, we're going to play our 43, cover two, and that's all we're going to play. We have adjusted, and we've done that this year as we've had, who we started the year with, and we had some injuries, and then, adjusting to that, and then slowly building that package back up around, what is it that we can do well, and to emphasize, like I said, the strengths of our players. And overall, our coaching staff has done a good job of doing just that. And then having the kids, buy in and understand, their responsibility and their goals for themselves and how that buys into the system. And then as you start having some success with that, as we got things, rolling and things in place here a little bit, and it just, it snowballs in a very positive way. And, we start making and reaching those, defensive and special teams goals that we set for ourselves each game, and they can see, the progress that's happening.
Talking to Marshfield defensive coach Len Luedtke, his 8-seeded Marshfield Tigers will travel to New Richmond on Friday. Again, that's a team that, or a game that was played in Week 1, 7-6. A little bit lighter question here, Coach. Have you talked to the offensive coaches about maybe getting some more points on the scoreboard, make it easier on your guys?
Well, we always are talking to each other, and we're always supporting each other. I mean, we've always, won together and lost together. I mean, it's always a team effort. And, obviously we emphasize on special teams, and that was, that first one was, as a game that we would kick both of those balls again, and I'm pretty sure we would make them both right now. I mean, that's just, and then we win that game. I mean, it's always has been and always will be, a team win. I mean, like in these last 4 games that we've been going here, our ability to run the ball has been outstanding, and our abilities to get 3 and outs and get off the field has been very good, and our special teams have been improving and making, I mean, we set those goals up and we make them, we win football games, and we were a little short last night of our goals, and you come up short. That's how it works.
Last one for me here, Coach. I've got Dan Ross next to me. I know he's got a couple for you, but I was
Sure.
we did a bigger production at your homecoming game against Wisconsin Rapids. Dan and I did a pregame show in the student section, and I was almost counting you guys out. Dan thinks I did count you out, but you shut out.
I did not, Coach. I did not.
There you go. All
You
right.
shut out Wisconsin Rapids 26-0, and then you turn around and beat Wausau West, which I really think was your hallmark win of the year, and then you beat Eau Claire North. You mentioned a couple of those games, and not directly, but I am now. What has been the turnaround these last few weeks?
Well, again, I mean, we have got now a couple weeks under our belt, leading up to those games, of kids being in positions for multiple weeks. And as they are, it allows them, number one, to get comfortable in what they're doing, and number two, for you to expand on what you're doing, to be able to stop a team like, Rapid, like stopping Rapids and stopping Spash are two drastically different, offenses. And then how do you tweak those things to do that? And the kids have responded pretty darn well with that. We have, switched some positions a little bit with some people, getting some, it is still about the kids and the athletes in the plays that they can make. It was awesome on senior night last week to see so many of our seniors make so many plays. I mean, it's neat when it comes together and the kids buy into what, the schemes that we're doing and understand just how important each and every one of those 11 are every time that we snap and kick the football.
See, Dan, there you go. A lineup shakeup, and maybe that's what's needed around here. Get me out, put somebody else in.
Right.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. Coach, good to have you on. A pleasure to be able to talk to a defensive-minded coach here. So my background is in basketball, and a lot of times coming into games, we tell the kids we want to hold the opponents to under 40, right? That's a high school basketball. Yep. If you give up less than 40, you have a great chance to win. Is that the same here at the Division I, Division II level? Do you have a number in mind that you tell the kids that you want to hold them under?
Yeah, our goal defensively is to hold them under 21.
Okay.
Yeah, our goal is 21 points and 250 total yards offense, and we want to create 2 turnovers, get 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, so those are our primary goals. And when we reach those, we win football games. It's hard at our level to hold people less than 3 scores because they're, like Spash last night. That's a good football team with good players. We're not going to make every tackle. They're going to break tackles even when we got guys in position to, and we know that. So, you have to tip your hat to, the other team as well, but then you got to get yourself back up and go make the next play is the key. We're always talking about a plays you can make and how do you learn from the one before and go forward.
Yeah, and when things start getting a little rocky, which happens in games during the season in all sports, how hard is it to get the kids together and change a strategic game plan halfway through a football game?
Well, it's difficult, and a lot of times, our coaching philosophy is there's no magic call that's going to go out and make a tackle and make a knockdown and go get a sack for you. It's about you doing your job and how critical that is. So, like, we're trying to get a quarterback and somebody loses contained, the chances of us getting a sack are very, very minimal. But if we keep that guy contained, and it's, you might not individually get the sack, but we do. And, that's the biggest thing. That so like last night we got struggling a little bit, and we played base, for a couple series in a row to just regroup. I'm like, guys, we can beat these guys doing our job in our base coverage. We don't have to. And we were, because we had guys in positions. We just have to go and finish. And like the reality, like that old baseball saying, there's no swing that's going to get you 6 runs. The biggest thing you got to do is get a guy on base. The best thing you can do to get a stop is, get a good tackle on first down and create second and long. So it's focusing on each play and the little things, that you need to do, like in defensively, to get off the field. And the biggest thing that we've improved on in these last weeks is 3 and outs and getting off the field. You got to limit their number of snaps is the key, because we talk about it all the time. It only takes 1 play to score, and either team can do it, and it can happen on any play. So it's that mindset of this play is the most important because this is the one we control right now.
It is Marshfield at New Richmond, Friday at 7 p.m. Coach Len Luedtke, best of luck to you and your Tigers.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.
There we go. Len and I have known each other, I think, 12 years old or something like that.
So he has a lot of stories about you.
He does. And, yeah, so I'm happy that he's off the phone now. He won't let any of those loose. Braden Mitchell, DC Everest, coming up in a minute or so. Is Katie's works the people don't know this, right? But for an hour and 40 minutes, Katie is just working the phone over and over and over and over there. And for that, we give her.
Yeah.
That's how that part works. Again, Jason Zaleski here, Dan Ross, Katie on the ones and twos, and an additional phone expert today as well. We're we start the show with Wisconsin Valley Conference coaches, and this I've been looking forward since 10:52 a.m. this morning. Looking forward to this next phone call because I think something happened here, and I'm not sure exactly how to. I don't know how to explain it, but we're going to see if Coach has an explanation, we're going to ask him about.
I'm kind of excited for this.
I've been looking forward to it all morning and now afternoon long. As it looks like. Yep, Katie says we're good. We bring in now, as we continue our Wisconsin Valley Conference tour, bring in DC Everest head football coach Braden Mitchell. Coach, before we get into the seeds and your game against Hudson, year number 1 for you. So just catch us up through 9 games of year number 1 with the Evergreens.
Yeah, I think we've had a pretty good season. We've definitely learned a lot about us and who we are. And I think we're in a great spot as we go into the playoffs.
We've been keeping track of seeds and brackets. We think we know the seed process up until 10 o'clock this morning, because it seems like something has changed. And maybe you don't care, because in the end, to be a state champion, you've got to beat everyone that comes in front of you anyway. So maybe it doesn't matter your seed. But give us the thoughts on just. We have an opinion. Dan expressed it earlier, but being a conference champion and going on the road in level 1.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't make it hard to find some extra motivation. That's for dang sure. But I think it was a shock to us all. We thought that we had done enough to get a home playoff game, but that's the way it goes. And talked to the team. We had the team all together this morning to watch the reveal. So we were able to talk about it and say, hey, it's all about how we respond. That's the great thing about this game is, you never know what's going to happen, and it's all about how you respond to things.
Taking a look at your schedule now, you've had some crossovers against those, quote, Big Rivers teams. Hudson wasn't one of them, yet other of the Central Wisconsin Valley teams played Hudson. So tell us about that. What can you get? What can you understand of watching the game and I don't have all the schedules here in front of me, but Stevens Point played Hudson. What can you get from something like that on this first round opponent?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of films with them on it. Most of the focus has been on the other teams, but naturally through watching that, you get a feel for kind of what they do and the type of guys that they have. And yeah, I mean, they definitely have some athletes. They got some kids with some size. It looks like they've done a few different things. We've exchanged our films with them, and currently just breaking down all the films right now and going through everything. So, but yeah, I mean, we've obviously seen a lot of the competition. We've played a few familiar opponents. So yeah, I think it should be a great game. It should be a lot better of a game than a normal 2-7 game, I would say.
I think so. I think so. Dan and I called a game over there, a playoff game, and the first score of the game was a safety scored by the Evergreens.
It was a 1-8 game, yeah.
It was an interesting game for sure. But you mentioned a great game coming up. We want to talk to you, Coach, about a great game from 2 weeks ago. A double overtime, just a bananas game. What does a game like that in a double overtime win against Stevens Point? What does a game do like that for your season?
I mean, it was a blast. It was a heck of a football game. There was a moment that, hey, we had everything going and 5 straight drives of touchdowns and felt really good about things. And then kick return kind of shifted the momentum there. And then to go into overtime and have things go the way they did, I kept saying it was a wild roller coaster. But I think it showed, when our backs were against the wall and we had to block a PAT, it showed what our guys had. And as a coach, those are huge moments for you to see that, as soon as they scored that touchdown, our guys being ready to line up and ready to go and everybody where they're supposed to be. And, those are huge moments in football games with, hey, you just gave up a touchdown. Like everybody in the stands thinks, hey, this game's over. And for them to come together like they did and block that PAT was huge. And I think allowed us to regain the momentum a little bit and go finish that thing off.
I looked at Dan Ross next to me. Everest held a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter. Just a wacky game.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
crazy.
Dan.
Yep.
Yeah, just absolutely crazy. I actually watched the 2 overtime periods on the way back from Stratford.
Okay.
Trying not to hit deer and other cars on the way.
I bet that was a tough task.
Yeah, I am living the roller coaster of watching this thing go back and forth. How does it feel to step into this role, and with such the storied history of DC Everest, are you reminded about that, or is it something that is just kind of given, and you've been able to kind of rise above expectations that way?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely clear the tradition and the historic seasons that they've had, and Coach Steph and everything that he's done here. It's all over this building. It's all over the stadium, which is great. It reminds us of, like, hey, this is where DC Everest is supposed to be. This is the standard that has been set for a long time. And we've tried to make that be a huge thing for us. We've brought back some old coaches from those great staff to talk to our team. The community out here is unbelievable, and the support that they give us, and the people from past years and past teams and stuff, just across the board, they do a great job. So yeah, it's definitely well known when you're here. And now we've talked about, like, hey, we respect the past and we represent the future, and what we can do to kind of get DC Everest where it belongs and what they do. We're trying to do our part with that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place. Schofield's amazing. I live on the west side of Wausau, and I'm a big fan of Wisconsin Valley football. Just in general, right? I think it's a great conference.
I wish you had more of a say in the bracket then.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to talk about here. And when I saw the Division I reveal, which they put at the end of the show, which is interesting, like they
on
want
the
to
hammer. You save the big guns for the hammer.
Yeah.
Well, I think they wanted to get that one on and get it out of there.
yeah. They don't want to make everybody mad the rest of the program.
Yeah, exactly.
But just in general, and I had a 40-minute drive down here to kind of cool off, right? As I was thinking about how I would talk about this. We had you on the 4 line for the last week or two at least, right? And a really good win against Spash, a really good resume. We've been pounding the computer numbers here, and your seat doesn't make sense to us. So you obviously have our condolences, but just in general, looking at the Valley Conference and the way that they're seated, I'm really interested in your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think Coach Eigenberger mentioned it and stuff, but yeah, I think that we have to prove some things. We have to show. It's the weird thing about it is trying to understand what is the process, what is how do they go about it? Is it strength of schedule? Is it all the formula stuff? Is there, somebody, a group of people that kind of go through and do it? Just to kind of see, like, hey, what is the criteria? What are we trying to achieve? Because if it is a strength of schedule thing, then okay, that kind of goes into how you prepare for a season and how you schedule opponents and stuff, and how much of that is in our control and not in our control. So yeah, I mean, just to get to know a little bit more of the behind the curtain would just help understand, hey, how does this whole thing shake out? At the end of the day, like you guys mentioned, we got to go win 5 games, and that's how we're going to look at it. And I know you guys had us a 4 versus 5 earlier in the week, and it was Hudson, so it didn't change who we were playing. But just, I mean, a home playoff game would have been huge for us and for this community, and I think has just added a level of motivation.
Plus some popcorn sales for the Booster Club. That always helps, too.
Exactly.
It is, DC Everest head coach Braden Mitchell at Hudson, his Evergreens, Friday, 7 p.m. Coach, best of luck.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, that concludes our tour of the Wisconsin Valley Conference for this afternoon. Again, coming up, Jake Nault-Miller of Abbotsford, Jerry Sins of Edgar, Jay Anderson, Auburndale, Logan Rosemeyer, Colby, Kyle Stofle, Mosinee, Joel Parr, Oak Creek, Matt Binsfeld, Kaukauna, Jason Tubbs, Stratford, and special guest Travis Wilson coming up in about 10 or 15 minutes as well. And, we're going to talk to all these guys, but, it's fun to talk about this stuff, and but I meant what I said before. You've got to go out. You got to beat whoever's in front of you anyway. But we talked about it so much last night, right? You'd rather be at home because there are so many more advantages just for the mentality of a 16, 17-year-old kid of not having to get on the bus ride and worry about homework and did I get my chores done? Is my mom mad at me? All these other things that could happen. You deal with it easier at home. because when you're on the road, you still got to do all that stuff when you get back at 1 in the morning. So it is a big deal. Hudson had a nice win last night. Beat Rice Lake, and that really catapulted their seed score. Win. So I think even using our formula, it was likely going to be Everest at Hudson. It would have flip-flopped because of the seed score. So Everest probably was going to be on the road anyway. And like Coach said, it's still at Hudson. So maybe all's well that ends well over there. No? Call him again.
I still think, and I will fall on the sword here of the WIAA puts these teams into conferences. It is not negotiable. You can try to get out of it, right?
You can offer a plan
process, yeah.
And they may or may not take that offer. And then if you're in a conference that maybe it doesn't make any sense, right, you can ask to leave it. Usually, though, that request is denied.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you come out on top of the group of 8 that they put you in. Group of 7, I think, in the Valley Conference with crossovers and stuff. But you're still on top of the heap. How do they not reward the conference that they've developed, that they put you in, with at least a 4 seed, at least a home game?
Well, I think if nothing else, some discussion out of this would be beneficial, and maybe we'll get that. Again, we're going to talk to Tom Shafransky, or at least effort that conversation, although Tom is always he's always said yes to me, so we think we'll... And so I'll get a chance to ask Tom some of these very important questions, and very important now that we move to Abbotsford. And head coach of the Abbotsford Falcons, Jake Nault-Miller. Coach, congratulations on entering the playoffs. And unlike a couple of the other coaches we've talked to so far today, a home game in store for the Falcons. So, Coach, tell us about that. A season of work equaling a home game on Friday night.
Yeah, it's really nice. Nice for our seniors to be able to have another one at home. And you really don't know at 7-2. Our final record and 5-2 in conference. You're really on that bubble of, depending on what direction you go, what bracket you end up in. You don't know if you're going to be that 4 or that 5 in some cases. And we had the same record as Nakusa, our opponent, and we must have ended up with some tiebreaker status that bumped us to the 4.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We talk a little bit about seed score. I don't know how much you follow along with that, but a seed score for Nakusa came in at 609, for you at 516. So, but yet you get the advantage of hosting Nakusa, who lost to Wisconsin Dells last night. That would have been a whole different talk with you and I today had Nakusa beat Wisconsin Dells last night. You're probably on the road in that case. So perhaps a thank you letter to Wisconsin Dells is in order. Tell us about a week of preparation now. You were no stranger to the playoffs, have had good success in the playoffs over the last number of years. So what's a week of preparation like as an Abbotsford Falcon?
You're really at that point where you should have almost everything installed, and it's a lot of prep and walkthrough for kids, a lot of mental stuff early on, and just kind of fine-tuning what you're good at and try to improve on the things from the week previous. And obviously we're coming off a loss to Edgar, and we have some things that we know we want to work on, especially defensively, giving up 40-plus points. And, we'll work on some of those things. Tackling stuck out as one of those things that, you always can get better at, and we didn't do a very good job last night with it. But ultimately you go into it like you're preparing for any other game, and at this point in the season, the one factor that does stick out is just being healthy or getting healthy, and we have some guys that got dinged up on Friday, and so it'll be a little bit of rest and some mental prep for the next week.
A lot of coaches tell me that they learn more about their team in a loss than a win. So what did you learn against Edgar last night? You mentioned some of those things, and then Auburndale a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we thought we played better last night than we did against Auburndale. Auburndale, we had, I believe, 10 penalties for 77 yards. We did not penalize ourselves last night. We had some missed snaps that we were unable to run plays with late in the first half, and that led to them getting a score before half to go up. And then they got the ball back and scored again, and kind of that momentum shift. But I thought we played as hard as we have all season, and played when we were able to, snap the football, played a really good offensive game. But the special teams and the tackles were kind of that deciding factor.
I turned to Dan Ross, who's sitting next to me, and Dan, we were watching the game. That was one of our 8 on the Nana box last night, and first half score that caught my attention was Irvin Aguilera right up the middle, just a hot knife through butter on that Edgar defense. And I bet if that happens for Coach Nault-Miller on Friday night, good chance against Nakusa. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to talk to you again, Coach. We talked a little bit pregame when Iola came up to Abbotsford, probably week 3. And I asked you at the time about the new conference, right? It's the Merriwood, CWC Small. We got new teams, new locations and stuff. After playing through the schedule one time, what is your opinion about the new conference?
Looking at coming from the Merriwood, I think the Merriwood maybe was a little deeper on the top end. There's really good competition in the new conference, but I think there was no real middle ground. It was either there were really top teams or the teams at the bottom that are rebuilding, and I think that was the biggest difference. We had 3 or 4 weeks, I think 3 weeks, where our varsity guys didn't play more than a quarter. We had back-to-back weeks going into Auburndale. And I think that hurts you more than that helps you when you come off of those and then have to play for a team for a conference championship. So that's my opinion. I know things will change. I know those teams will improve as we go on, but that was kind of the big difference, I think.
Yeah, and the old Merriwood had some of the same teams, but I think you're right. The bottom half of the conference a little bit weaker this year, and knowing that you're going to have 2 or 3 games probably where you're going to be a really big favorite, how do you keep the kids motivated and on task during those games?
Yeah, great question. You kind of go into it knowing your younger guys are going to get more opportunities, and we weren't necessarily the healthiest all season, and so I think going into those games, it gave us an opportunity to get some of those guys off the field and get rested for the next week. We really challenge the kids to come out as fast as you can and play. We added a new challenge every week. He challenged you to, go no huddle and go up tempo and run plays as fast as you can and run quality plays and not really worry about the opponent as much as just working on your own stuff.
Yeah. Great season, Coach. Any home playoff game is always a really special opportunity, especially for the seniors, but even the community as a whole. Big win against Colby this year. You have bragging rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My last request, Coach, as we let you off after this one is we missed Street Taco Night last night. So if you can help run that back, whether it's on Friday or maybe in the basketball season, help us out. We want to get those street tacos.
Hey, I'll submit the request for you guys.
Appreciate it, Coach. Good luck on Friday over at home against Nakusa.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Jake Nault-Miller, always a great guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Appreciate
quesadillas and street tacos.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, and Katie's going to look to Travis Wilson. We're going to get Travis on the show, and
I'm excited. He looked frustrated at times this morning, is what I would say.
This will be, and I'm more just talking to Dan here. We do this whole thing live. We don't script any of this. We don't do any pre-production meeting or anything like that. We do have Coach Sins scheduled for 2 p.m., so we're just going to do a real quick 1 or 2 minutes with Travis, because my understanding is he was also heading out to the golf course. So,
if I wasn't here, I would be on the golf course today.
Look at it. Look at outside. It's sunny. Still some green, some yellows, some oranges. Great day just to be outdoors, just in general, no doubt about it.
Last week of October coming up, I'm in shorts.
Oh, yeah. I feel great, too. you know, and I got the jacket on only because we're indoors. In here, they keep it really cold, but and I suppose there's a reason for that with the lights and everything like that. But outside, it'd be t-shirt and shorts weather today. Go ahead. We bring in from WISports.net, Travis Wilson. First things first, Travis. Congratulations on a really well done show this morning. We want to talk to you about some of these seeds, and
I'm so excited for this.
I mentioned it before. No matter what your seed is, and you know this as a football coach and as an all-around football guy, you got to beat whoever's in front of you anyway, no matter the seed. But some of these teams looked at the reveal that you helped host and thought, how did that work out? Your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I agree with you. There's some that you look at and you wonder, how that could be the case. I also know, doing this for a while, that's always going to be the case based on just, how everybody looks at things. You want to try to get it as right as you can. There's no doubt about that. But even, as I've said many times, even when coaches were seeding, even when it was before that and the WIAA had a criteria seeding, even when it was before that and you just got assigned, there were issues and there were complaints, and you're never going to make everybody happy. So ultimately, as you said, at some point you got to put the pads on and play and beat good teams. But I agree. There's times that you look at it and you do scratch your head.
Well, oftentimes, and you know this, you're looking forward to your seniors having one more home game, maybe that playoff game. It's probably on the whiteboard a goal of yours when you start the season. Let's have another home playoff game. But with that being said, just talk about that. The student athletes that are seniors right now, in one way, shape, or form, over the next few weeks, their competitive high school or competitive football life will come to an end. Just what's your advice to those seniors as they do put on these pads, maybe for some of the last times ever?
I've posted for, 10 years now. My advice to seniors at this time of the year is always rage against the dying of the light. It's a poem by Dylan Thomas. It's something that, strikes me every time this year that, your time is dwindling and you don't fully grasp what that means. You don't fully grasp just how few opportunities you have left. We are at like 250 football games remaining in this entire season. Every week that number gets whittled down, obviously. And, next week there's 3,000 seniors that will play their last football game, last high school football game for sure. And for the vast majority of them, that last football game ever, because there's no, there's college obviously for some kids, but football is one of those sports that you can't just continue playing, like pickup basketball or golf or, beer league softball. When it's over for most kids, it's over. It is a very final ending. And, again, I don't think kids fully grasp it until much later on.
I didn't for sure, just speaking personally. Reedsburg 35, Holman 21, Dan Ross. So Reedsburg, is talking to Travis here, enters the playoffs, coming off a win.
Share of a conference title, correct?
That's correct. How about this, guys? 5-way conference championship tie atop the Mississippi Valley. I maybe remember one 4-way tie or a couple 4-way ties in 16 or 17 years of doing this. Never do I remember a 5-way tie. Absolutely insane the way it played out over the last couple weeks. Excited that Reedsburg and my son, who's a junior on the team, got a chance to earn that opportunity last night with a win. And it was even better because at halftime they pulled my name to win the Polaris UTV.
That was going to be my question.
A day for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a day.
Well, excellent. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. We appreciate you squeezing in. We've got, and of course, Jerry. You've got Coach Jerry Sins coming on the show here in just a couple moments. And you are headed to the golf course, yes or no?
I'd like to, but man, I am beat. It was a late night last night. I ended up going to Stevens Point and trying to help with some playoff stuff there. Late into the morning, maybe a couple hours sleep, and then on to Wausau for the show, and then a 2+ hour drive home. I just got back, so I think it's time to crash, unfortunately. But give my best to Coach Sins. I still think one of my favorite stats of anything is that Coach Sins won his first state championship before I was born.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Sorry, Travis, plenty of time for golf over the next few days. It looks like the weather's going to stay good. Hopefully you get on the links, and we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, congratulations this morning. It was a great show, Travis.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
WISports.net. We talked about it last night. We scour the interwebs all over the place, all 24/7, as they say. And WISports.net is part of our rotation on getting that information, whether it be conference records, team records, coach names, what have you, and also really good written coverage too. And Travis is a big part of it.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying this. It is one of the best high school sports stat sites in the entire country.
I've looked for them in other states, and in most states it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's incredible.
In some other states, we did business in Indiana for a little while on top of this here, and it was just boys basketball. That something like that existed,
with
but
hoops.
The other sports didn't come into play at all. Reedsburg, right? Home game.
Yeah,
home game for the Beavers
against Whitnall.
Yeah, I think I got tripped up a couple times last night. Whitnall, Whitehall. Two different schools.
Yeah, in the second round, you have Catholic Memorial kind of looming, and that's always
it's a dark force appearing from the
is.
distance, and we bring in now.
Speaking of dark forces, I'm joking.
Oh
Coach.
my gosh, no, honestly, Coach Jerry Sins, the Edgar Wildcats. I mean, always, at least to me anyway, he's got a smile on his face. He's got a bright outlook, and I'm not running the wrong play or holding somebody or missing a tackle, so I don't have anything for Coach to be angry about. And Coach, congratulations, another 1 seed to add to your playoff resume. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is, but things are breaking up bad on my phone, and
Okay, well, we'll give it one more shot. Just tell us about being the 1 seed in the upcoming playoff season.
About the end of the season?
Being the number 1 seed.
Yeah, we were happy with it. I mean, obviously, you never know what's going to happen. A year ago, when we were undefeated, unscored upon conference champs, we got a 2 seed. So, and I see some teams at 7-2 in second place in their conference getting 1 seeds and so on. So it's always a challenge, always tricky to figure out, how it's done and so on. But yeah, we know you got to play them all anyway. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference when you play them. So we're happy with the 1 seed and happy with our bracket.
Folks out there listening, and Edgar football head coach Jerry Sins, if you think it's unusual that he remembers exactly what happened last year, don't, because Coach can recall every roster he's ever had at Edgar, going on 53 years now. So that's really what we're up against there. Coach, coming up on Friday, Pittsville Panthers come to town. Tell us what you know about the Pittsville Panthers.
Well, we played them earlier in the year. They're in our conference. I see last night they had a heck of an offensive explosion, scoring 70 points. So obviously we're going to have to hold them to a few less than that, or it could be a long night. But, yeah, so they're obviously playing good right now. Somebody we know fairly well. So it'll be fun.
All right, Coach, I've got Dan Ross. You remember Dan, I'm sure, next to me. He's got a question for you.
Yeah, obviously the tradition is extremely rich in Edgar football, just historical. You have been through the ringer many times. You've won many state championships. You've been to level 2, level 3, level 4, year after year after year. You know your team really well. You know the kind of team that you need to have to make a really deep run.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't get that. Once again, it's breaking up bad.
Coach, with your team, do you think you have the horses to make a deep playoff run?
Yeah, I didn't get it. Once again, I have no idea what the issue is with.
All right. Well, we'll let Coach go. Coach, best of luck on Friday. We will be there live, Dan, Zaleski Sports.
Right.
We are going to be there live. It's Pittsville at Edgar. Kickoff at 7 o'clock. You know, you and I have been to Edgar a number of times.
Oh, yeah.
Cell coverage is a roll of the dice over there often. I remember years ago, before cell towers and other things had improved, it's a team we always wanted to cover in a live way, but we would always be relegated to highlights because you couldn't get an internet signal to do a TV broadcast, which is a lot, right? You need a lot for that. But I've been there before, just like Coach now, and I can't get a phone call. I've probably been on the phone with you sometimes, and I'm like, I'm just about ready to roll through Edgar. Goodbye.
Yeah, pretty much. Edgar's got a good team this year. They really do. It's dangerous, I think, to compare teams over the years, year to year to year. They had a monster team last year. If I had to say if they could beat last year's team, probably not. But you'd be talking about trying to beat a state championship team. This team is good enough, and Travis Wilson picked them to win Division 7 once again. I mean, why not? Right?
Yeah. I talking candidly to some other folks, they were concerned about Potosi in their division, and that was about it. Now we'll see what happens, but that's some pretty strong language there when you size up the rest of the entire division, and you're like, I think one team could pose maybe some sort of problem for us.
Yeah, and they were given a pretty nice group of 8. I think Edgar's going to handle all these teams. Iola's the 2. You have Crivets in there. Outside that, I think Edgar's going to roll for the first couple of rounds.
All right. Speaking of roll, we are rolling into or staying with the Merriwood CWC Small and Auburndale Eagles. The 3 seed, they'll host a playoff game, and we bring in Auburndale Eagles head coach Jay Anderson. Coach, I want to start from a few years ago. I think it was 2019, but you were telling me on this show that to begin the season, your goal for the guys in that year was just to host a home playoff game. You ended up winning a couple. Tell us about hosting a home playoff game here in 2024.
Important. It's something that we've often talked about to give us that advantage to be at home and put ourselves in that situation. And I think last night clearly, and it showed that was that big of a win to get us that. So, we've, as far as a program, to be able to always have that a part of our goals and of course, competing in conference, but that is something that I bring up often to be able to put us in a position to host.
Yeah, 6-1 conference record, gave you a leg up in the seeding process. As I take a look now, you are, certainly up the list a little bit. You will host Westfield on Friday, and all that has to do with the book of work that you and the guys have put in. 6-1 in conference, just the one blemish against Edgar. And then going into the playoffs on a bit of a win streak, right? I'm not that good at math here, Coach, but it looks like a 6-game win streak to head in. Is your team at its top performance right now?
I don't know about top. I think we're getting there. I told them last night. I think we still have some things that we can focus on throughout a day of practice, weekly, to be able to get ourselves prepared. And there still seems to be some of those moments where we let our guard down within a game. So I still believe that we have a step to take that can get us more of a full game. And I think about the Abbotsford game as one of those games where we found out what we can really be, and it got us there. And I think there's still more as far as that, continually in competitive mode throughout a practice and throughout a game. But we're definitely going in the right direction at the right time.
I was on the sideline of that game over at Abbotsford. What impressed me most in that game was the work of your offensive line, just opening big holes for Colton Weiler and Nathan Van Wy, and then those guys punishing. Is that ground attack going to need to be there all playoff season long?
Absolutely. That's something I talked about again last night and throughout these games when we get in a situation in the second half and get in those moments when you really have to maybe chew up some clock. Last night it wasn't really, we seemed to have a lot of big plays on the ground, so we weren't really, but that line was doing that, and it just resulted in long runs. And I believe Colton Weiler had 7 carries for 100 and 79 yards in the second half. So those were big plays instead of grinding them out, but the line was doing their job. But that is something that I really get into the offensive line's minds, that there's that time in that game when they have to take it over and get us through to the fourth quarter and get us the W. So that's in their mind, and they've been doing a very good job with that.
Talking to Auburndale Eagles head coach Jay Anderson, Dan Ross sitting to my left, and we were watching portions of that game last night here from the studio, and Coach was right. Every time we looked, they were either inside the 10 or the score had just went up again, so one or the other. Go ahead, Dan, for Coach Anderson.
Yeah, hey, Coach Anderson, pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Congratulations on a fantastic season. This is still the Merriwood, right? They might call it the CWC Small or whatever, but it still is the Merriwood. And 6-1 in the Merriwood, always something to be proud of. What do you know about Westfield?
Well, we've exchanged tape, and we're really starting to understand them a lot. I believe, they have a mix of size schools in their conference, and that can always be a little different. They're in that 288 range, and I think they're playing some bigger schools, and that can always be deceiving as far as the outcomes against the bigger ones. So they're kind of a larger school that's playing a little bit more than down in the enrollment, so that can always be deceiving as far as looking at their schedule and that type of stuff. So we're in the process. I was just watching film right now and seeing that they do have some nice athletes. They like to spread the field a little, the shotgun, similar to what we do. And they have some size, they have some speed and quickness. So we'll keep sticking to our process and do our scouting, and it looks like they can have some solid weapons.
Yeah, and looking at the bracket that you're in, we're the media. We can kind of look at some of the teams. I know that you're not looking at it, but it really feels like this part of the state, because that's how it's geographically put together, right? Having Coleman, Bonduel, Auburndale, like 2, 3, 4 really, really good teams in your section. And it feels like the Merriwood teams were given bonus points this year. Do you think the conference deserves it?
You mean as far as where we're getting seeded to the bonus points? Or
really high seeds.
Last year I think it really came down for us the fact that we beat a Milwaukee Hamilton school that was a Division I, 1,900 students. We beat them. They made the playoffs. We beat O'Connell Falls. It was 7-2. They made the playoffs in Division maybe 2 above us. So we got points for that. I don't know now. I take nothing away from our non-conference teams. They're solid athletes, solid teams, but they didn't make playoffs. And I think that's kind of the difference maker between 2 and 3. Abbotsford's a heck of a team. I really do think that when it comes down to it, there's some really good teams in there. And I think Abbotsford, Auburndale, are right up there. And as far as being a 3 and 4, I think Abbotsford's a heck of a 4th seed team. They're really good. So I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a disappointment. I would like to have had it too, but I understand Bonduel's only loss is the Coleman, who's undefeated. And that was a close game. And I think the process gives credit to teams that might, even losing to a playoff team. We didn't have a non-conference there. So I think that's how it sorts out. I think maybe computer can't really do much, but I think that the people in around the state and that know football definitely provide respect for the Merriwood. They understand what it's about.
All right, Coach Jay Anderson and his Auburndale Eagles at home on Friday. Go down and get there. I know the hot dogs are good in Auburndale, the concession stand, so go down there and enjoy a football game. Coach, best of luck on Friday against Westfield.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for doing this.
You got it. Coach mentioned Bonduel. The Bonduel Bears, we talked about a little bit really last night, too. Yeah. They are quite good, which would be a level 2 game for Auburndale. Bonduel seed score, a 625. Auburndale, just a couple notches below at a 584, so fairly close. I also, the other thing, Westfield played Nakusa, and Nakusa is in the top half of that group there. So maybe behoove the Eagles to take a look at that Westfield Nakusa game.
Yeah, when the bracket came out this morning, and just looking at Division 6, there are some teams that really pop out at you on this half of the bracket. Regis, for example, right? Coleman, very good. Regis and Coleman have both been to Camp Randall the last couple of years, not last year, but the years before that. Bondwell, we talked Bondwell last night with the athletes that they have coming through the school right now in all sports. Baseball, basketball, football.
State baseball team.
Yeah. Auburndale, just given the geographic position and the enrollment that the Eagles have right now, kind of have a tough road. They have a tougher road than Edgar, for example.
They do.
Right?
Yeah, they do. I don't know much about the Pioneers, but just kind of looking through their schedule and some of the other things, Auburndale, the 3 seed, so they're a favorite. Just my opinion, a personal favorite anyway. All right, so another favorite of ours are the Colby Hornets, always putting out good sports programs all throughout the different seasons. You talked about a recent state champion. Colby Hornets are that as well.
Many state championships. I'm really excited about Coach's mental state last night, waiting.
Well, that's the first thing is we bring in the Colby Hornets head coach, Logan Rosem. Coach, you lose somewhat of a heartbreaker over at WIAA last night, and then the bus ride home on pins and needles. Are we in or are we out? Tell us about what you went through last night.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting night, and then this morning, just kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. I guess sometimes the WIAA kind of, even if you do think you're in, sometimes you're out though. So I guess that can kind of, who knows? Once the ball gets kicked off on Friday, then I'll know for sure we're in.
Well, my advice to Coach would be to keep a closer eye on us, because we had you in the last couple of weeks, and we put our field out. Now, you were probably in bed, but we put the whole playoff field out at around 12:20 in the morning, and we had you in. You come in as the 7 seed, and I'm talking about bus rides. I've made the bus ride, and I've made a car ride to Maple, Wisconsin before. It's a long ways up there, Coach, and being such a long ways away, how do you go about getting to know more about the Northwestern football team?
We've actually been, I guess, a little familiar with them just from playing St. Croix Falls the last 2 years in the playoffs. So we've watched film on them the last couple of years, more from a St. Croix Falls perspective, but we've had kind of an eye on them. I think they've been in our bracket the last 2 years as well. So always knew this is probably a possibility that we could end up going up to Maple. Well,
and you will. What I want to talk to you next, Coach, again, we're talking to Colby Hornet head football coach Logan Rosem. First year at the top spot, and in a really tough conference. Just give us your thoughts on the first regular season now in the books for you and the Hornets.
Yeah, I think it's kind of not necessarily a surprise. We knew it was going to be a real tough conference, but just from going to the conference we were in last year to this year, you could really tell the difference in size, the speed, and I guess just the overall ability that really all the teams have.
All right. I've got Dan Ross next to me here. I know he's got a question or two for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach. Nice chatting with you. Shocking that people aren't watching the Twitter feed at 12:20 a.m. when we release our things. There was a time at about 11 o'clock where we knew that you were in, and I wonder like how coaches would feel about us texting you guys saying like, hey, you're in, like you can go to bed feeling good. But a specific question for you, Coach.
Probably wouldn't be too bad. Just got to make sure the WIAA gets it right.
Well, we'll keep it on the list for next year. We'll let you know sooner next year.
Yeah. You've had an up and down season, right? Started off a little bit slow and slowly getting better as we go. Colby does has a storied tradition. Some really good teams have come through Colby. And do you feel, this is your first year, do you feel like there's a little bit more weight on your shoulders because of what has come before you? And how have you handled that this year?
Not necessarily. Obviously, Colby's had a great tradition, going back to Dwayne Teska and then my Uncle Jeff for a while, and Coach Hagan last couple of years. I think as coaches, we just kind of try to take it year by year, and we're always going to have the players we have. So the fact that guys that graduated 10, 20 years ago were really good doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to be really good or we're always going to have really big guys. But it could go the other way. If you're a program that struggled in the past, there's no reason that you're always going to struggle. You could always put yourself in a good position to end up making the playoffs and make a run.
Yeah. And what does it mean for the seniors to have one more game? We talk about that quite a bit, right? Seniors die hard, and once football's done, it's done, right? So these seniors get one more game. How special is that going to be for the kids?
Yeah, just being on the field last night when we didn't really know if we were going to have another game, made sure to tell all the underclassmen to thank the seniors for everything they did, just because, you never really know if you're going to be in when you're on the bubble and you're 3-4. So I just going from the emotions of thinking we might be done here, that might have been it, to being able to play another game. Hope we don't take that for granted and really come out and play our best.
All right, it is Colby traveling to Northwestern. Hopefully, Coach, the iFan network up there picks up that game, so if folks can't drive to Lake Superior, which is where that is, hopefully they're able to watch you from afar. But best of luck, Coach, on Friday. Great talking to you today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, yeah, that's kind of been the tradition up there. Outfit called the iFan network has done a lot of the Northwestern games up there. Hopefully they're able to make that happen. I was just pulling up one of those. It looks like maybe the school district has picked up the pace there too. Well, we'll do our best to keep you up to date on that. Unfortunately,
do you think that
we're not able to make the trip up there on Friday?
Do you think that if you wanted to go up there, they'd let you in?
Oh, for sure.
Voluntarily.
Yeah, it's Bloomer that my name's on the list. And it shouldn't be. I just held them to task. I asked them for a fact, and they didn't like that so much. Okay.
Northwestern, a very good team.
Year in and year out.
Every year. They are one of these teams that's always on the 1-2 lines, seems like. Yeah,
coming in to that game on Friday, they'll host Colby. They've beat Cumberland, Barron, Bloomer, Ashland, Hayward. They're on a bit of a heater. They beat Bloomer 64-0, Ashland 56-0. They put 58 on Hayward. They put 68 on Cumberland. And Colby giving up, what did it end up, 35 last night to WIAA Fremont. Those underclassmen that Coach
crazy
Rosemeyer,
game, actually.
It was pretty wild, and wild to us because we couldn't see the visitor score on the scoreboard, so we weren't ever really quite sure what the score was, although it looked like that Colby was trailing at one point. But those underclassmen that Coach talked about, they're going to need a big defensive effort up there at Northwestern. So they got to pull it up by the bootstraps? I don't even know what that means. I don't have straps on my boots, but that's what people say.
Yeah, and that game last night, that was one of these 2, 3-3 teams where the winner's in and the loser has to sweat.
Yep.
And it came for those that didn't see it came down, I think WIAA scored with 10 seconds left or something right at the end of the game to win.
Well, it was the extra point that gave them the 1-point victory, so good thing they had a place kicker. Or we could have been into overtime there. Yeah, it's about an hour and a half on the bus back from, as they say, WIAA back to Colby. And it's a lot of time for the seniors and for the coaches probably to sit and reflect on what could have been in the season and then what could have been in that one game. Just that the game we just left, like, holy cow, how did that happen? And what we could extrapolate from the scoreboard, it looked like WIAA made a 2-score comeback in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on the weekly show a little bit. We're probably a year, maybe 2 years away from just having all these teams in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah. Solve a lot of problems, won't it?
Yeah, you add an extra round, but the top teams will get a bye. And when we were in school, the last game of the year was on a Thursday, and then the first 2 games were Tuesday, Friday. So you'd play Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, and we all ended up okay. There's no reason why we can't do it again. No
worse for the wear, right? You're young, resilient, you bounce back. There's no problems with any of it. It's kind of, when you're that age, you're kind of like, they give you it's kind of like when they gave Joe Biden the medication before the State of the Union, right? He's all over the place, right? That's what a kid's like, usually. All right, let's go ahead. This is Kyle Stofle, head coach of the Mosney Indians. Coach, thanks for joining. I know you're on the road today. First, tell us, where are you headed and why?
I just pulled into Fargo, actually. I'm here to watch my son, who plays for South Dakota State, take it on North Dakota State today.
Oh, that's a big rivalry game. That's a good game.
It is, yeah. Thoughts
It's
on that
huge,
game,
yeah.
Coach? What do you expect to see?
Well, we got number 1 South Dakota State against number 2 North Dakota State. So I don't know what to expect. I'm hoping the Jackrabbits play well and go away with a win.
And they catch us up on Gavin, who you're talking about, and his season so far over there.
So Davin's doing well. He's a redshirt freshman, right? He redshirted last year, but he started every game this year so far. So pretty happy with what's going on with him.
Yeah, just all around great student and athlete over at Mosinee, Davin Stofle. Whether it was football, basketball, baseball, I got a lot of memories of being able to call some of those games. Yeah, sure seemed like it. All right, Coach. So Medford had their way with you last night, but a lot of coaches tell us over the years that you learn more from the losses sometimes than the win. Just tell us what you can take from that game last night, and then take it into the first round of the playoffs with you on Friday.
I was happy with some of the things we did. Obviously, we gave up way too many points, but a lot of that fell on our special teams and just some turnovers. We basically handed them 3 touchdowns to start the game, and that's just obviously when you play a good team, that's not going to work. So a lot of it after the game was just talking about, we're at the point where we're going to be playing good teams, and if we expect to play with them or beat them, we got to eliminate mistakes and cut down on turnovers and stop giving up big plays. And we didn't do that well enough last night, and obviously the result wasn't what we wanted.
The team coming up on Friday is Ellsworth. You get to host that game as the 3 seed. And in your Division 4, because of performance factor, a team that had moved up to that, either it was I think it was a Division 2 team that slid everybody down 1. And in your case, you are the largest school in Division 4. Is that any kind of an advantage for you and your ball club?
Well, yeah, I think that obviously that's an advantage anytime you can play against some schools that are a little smaller versus the bigger schools. I guess the biggest thing is that some of those schools that are perennial powers in D4 got moved up to D3, so that helps us in that case too.
Yeah, the number 2 seed in your group, Baldwin Woodville. Number 1 seed in your group, Freedom. So that's what comes next. So you're on the road today, doing college football, and going to be entertained by a great game. We're going to have to watch that one on TV, Dan, before we go here today, I think. So when do you begin the process of figuring out how to beat Ellsworth?
Well, I haven't had a chance to sit down and get on my computer, but as soon as I do, I'll send out something to try to exchange some film, and hopefully either late tonight or tomorrow morning we'll hopefully have some film on them and kind of see what they try to do and figure out how to stop it.
Well, send us those notes too, because we come to do the play call on Friday. We're going to want to know some things too. Coach, I've got Dan Ross sitting next to me. I know he's got a question or two for you.
Yeah, I don't even know where some of these schools are in this group. So the Great Northern Conference, kind of an up and down conference depending on the year and depending on the sport as well. But what it really comes down to, it seems, is that it's Medford or Mosinee, right? So maybe walk us through the emotion leading up to that game and the emotions during the game last night.
Emotions are high. I mean, whenever we play Medford, especially since I've really been paying attention to Mosinee sports, this is about year 5 now. Like you said, pretty much every year it comes down to at least the 3 sports that my kids play: football, basketball, baseball. It's the conference championships lately have been running through either Mosinee or Medford. It seems like. So the kids, they know each other well because a lot of 2 and 3 sport athletes when we play each other, and it's a pretty good rivalry, and we get after it pretty good when we play each other. Yeah,
and like Jason said, you guys were right on that cut line. You guys were in Division 3, and then we added a team and it pushed you down to 4 as you went through the criteria. Looking at the Division 3, you have all the Great Northern teams. I mean, obviously you're missing Medford, but there's a lot of teams that if you would have stayed in Division 3, you would have had a lot of common opponents that you know of. So going into a bracket without seeing these teams and these teams not seeing you, do you think that's an advantage or a disadvantage for you, for your team or for the opponents?
I think it can go
both ways, to be honest with you, Dan. You know, there is some comfort playing teams that you're familiar with. You know their offense. You know, kind of have an idea of, you've played them before. You think you can stop them, or you know what works against them. But at the same time, when you play some of these other schools, you know some of the stuff that these other schools know that you're trying to do, and maybe know how to stop you, or little things that they've learned over the years that work against you. Hopefully these teams don't figure that out right away when we play them.
Yeah, good luck, Coach. You have a whole room of cheerleaders over here cheering for you guys to make a deep run this year.
Yeah, you know, we've been bitten by the injury bug pretty hard this year, but we've had some kids that have stepped up, and now they're starting to get more reps, and they're getting more comfortable with what they're doing out there, and hopefully we don't lose any more guys, and we can stay healthy and get on a roll here.
Moseley Indians head football coach Kyle Stofle. He and the Indians will take on Ellsworth Friday. Kickoff 7 p.m. Coach, best of luck.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
All right. I'm clicking the wrong buttons here, Dan.
I know what you're doing over here.
Yeah, well, I want to get some insight into that football game. I haven't watched that league yet this year. Usually I don't until around this time of year. I'm not even sure if I'm clicking on the right buttons here.
In basketball, it's the Summit League. I don't know what it is in football. But it is FCS.
There it is.
Yeah,
got it.
There you go.
7 o'clock on ESPN2. Sir, all right, I'll be cozy by that point in time. Maybe have an adult beverage in my hand, and I'll settle in for some Jackrabbits and Bison football.
Yeah, two really good FCS teams. The FCS has had this 2014 bracket for quite a while, which is weird because the big Division I schools are up until this year they were still doing they're like, hey, we have a BCS and then we have a 14 playoff. Put 24 teams in. Like, why not?
Yeah, it's insanity. Just old minds that are still in charge is the issue there. South Dakota State, for those so inclined, 2-point favorites on the road in Fargo. So they come in as favorites in that one. And the Sharps always know. The Sharps always know.
Yeah, I bet you it's right about that number.
Yeah, and it's just not – I haven't followed either team this year. But we do have North Dakota State alum Hunter Luedtke signed jersey right down here in front of us.
I think it's Jackrabbits against Bison, right?
Yeah, Jackrabbits and Bison. I mean, who would win in a real life Jackrabbits Bison tangle up? I don't know. Bison have bad vision, I've been told, though.
Bad vision, and they're slow, and the Jackrabbit's super fast, but the Jackrabbit has to attack the Bison a lot.
Well, yeah, you've seen maybe some of the little videos, the shorts or the memes, and the rabbit has what are they? A hit power of 100, but a damage power of 0.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Jackrabbit's going to be hard to hit, but you only have to hit once.
Yeah, you just Bison takes one hoof and it's over.
Yeah,
one hoof and the rabbit's gone. All right, so this has devolved into some nonsense. I wanted to talk about a couple. We've got, to finish up our show here today, Joel Parr, Oak Creek, Matt Binsfeld, Kaukauna, Jason Tubbs, Stratford, Coach Parr of the Oak Creek Knights coming up in just about 2.5 minutes. As that's a pretty interesting game there, as Oak Creek is going to tangle up with Muskego. And we've got some sights on perhaps broadcasting that game for the masses. I'm still, my page is still on Division 4 Mosinee. I asked Coach about the advantage of being the biggest fish in that Division 4 pond. I think he said it was a good advantage. I think it's a big advantage. Just more bodies to go around. And I look, a team like Baldwin Woodville, probably a good team. I haven't seen them play this year. I have seen them in years past. And a team like Mosinee is going to come in, and they're going to have quite a numbers advantage. Just guys on the sideline compared to the other sideline. Maybe that's useful.
Yeah, numbers and size. You stepped out, but I asked him. You're Division 4, but if you would have stayed in Division 3, you'd have all those great northern teams. And if that would have been maybe an easier path or an advantage, And Coach Stofle was not going to fall into my traps. He wasn't going to.
Yeah, we're not talking to any D3 coaches today, but congratulations, the Medford Raiders. A huge win last night. I didn't, Coach
top seed.
Skipped over the score, and I didn't want to bring it up either, but it was a convincing Medford win at Mosney, one they've been looking for a long time there in Medford. But yeah, so Medford taking on your T-Birds in that level 1 game over in Medford. Wausau East, a home game against Fox Valley Lutheran. And again, we've mentioned this a number of times. A program that almost ceased to exist a couple of years ago. Wapaka is at La Crosse Logan, a game we plan on carrying in that level 1. And then the Merrill Blue Jays get in the playoffs with 3 wins. They take on, or they're at Onalaska.
Yeah, and if you put Mosney into that group, they're probably the 2 seed, I would say. And, it's probably, a level 3 game with Medford could have been a possibility, but now they skipped that and they got new teams.
Turn our sights to Division 1 and to our friends to the southeast. These are the Oak Creek Knights, coached by Joel Parr. Coach, first off, congratulations on a great season, and on to the playoffs you go. Just give us an update with you and the guys on the season so far.
Hey, thank you so much for having us. Excited to have you guys. Your coverage this year has been amazing. Having a couple of Matt and Elijah doing our games has been super, just a good deal. And we as a team at Oak Creek, we have high expectations. We always do. We've had a couple of things that happened along the way that just about every team around's having, injuries and things like that. Very good Franklin team beat us. An upstart Racine Case team got us on our homecoming, which was disappointing. And to lead to our, I almost got hit here on the interstate, sorry. And to lead to our game this week, we played Muskego early on and played them real tough. They were fully loaded when they came by us, as were we, and they had quite a few injuries throughout the year that might make their overall record look a little bit less than they are. But they got everybody back, and we know how good Muskego is.
Yeah, Coach, I'm looking at your non-conference. You beat Waterford in week 1, 38-0, and like you said, a competitive game at home to Muskego, 28-10. That non-conference schedule, now with the seed process as it is, becomes so important. You schedule those better teams, gives you a chance later on when they put the seeds together to maybe get past another team that didn't play such a high quality non-conference schedule. What do you just take us through the process of how you schedule those first 2 games every year?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It hasn't worked that way in the last 3-4 years. So we've played some good teams consistently, and we've had some strange rankings. I have no complaints about ours this year. We got what we deserve this year. But we're going out to find good teams. We want to play Muskego because they're going to test us early on to see who we are, where we need to get better, what we can improve on. We're going to consistently find those teams. And in the past, we've tried to do that. Waterford's a good program that's really made a nice second half come on, and they made the playoffs, and I feel that they're going to end up doing a heck of a job. We want to play great teams. I have to admit that I don't have any clue how the seeding works, though.
Well, we had a pretty good beat on it until this morning.
We thought we did.
We were experts for the last number of years, so we've got some discovery to go find now. You mentioned Franklin. Obviously a great season last year. They have good tradition there, just a couple miles down the road from you to your west. When you play a team like that in your conference, you came on the lose again this year, but what things did you learn? What do you want to learn when you're playing a team that probably is a little better than you in a game like that?
With them we want to see where our weaknesses are and how we can get better. Franklin knows us as good as we know us at times, I believe, and that's something we have to get over. Last 4 years I think we've played each other 7 or 8 times. We catch each other in 2 years ago, or the year they won state, we went 9-2. Our 2 losses were to Franklin. We had them in the playoffs. We were up late in the fourth quarter. So, we've played with them. We beat them the next year. So we've played with those guys. It's not like they own us all the time, but I will say that they have had our number, and they're a heck of a program without a doubt.
Coach, you mentioned Matt and Elijah broadcasting the games. We appreciate that. It lets us in, and I'm a fan watching your games. And what I've become a fan of is your passing attack. Blake Furcus, spinning the ball out there. Dougie Hamilton making highlight catches all season long. So tell us about the offensive side and how they will help you come playoff time on Friday.
Well, the one thing we hope we can do is take a team like Muskego and make them spread out a little bit. We can't let them they can't just crowd the box. Our ability to throw it does help us quite a bit. We still want to be a power football team. We had one of the best linemen in the league, I thought, in Kevin Wojciechowski, and losing him, he was a two-way starter. Kind of changed our front a little bit on offense, but the ability to get rid of the ball, throw it, move it around. To other receivers, Doug Hamilton's a very good player, but Max Hoagland and Mike Busateri also help us to spread the field quite a bit as well.
Yeah, it's just sometimes from the media side, you make those tiptoe catches on the sideline. It kind of brings some attention to it all. When you go about studying for Muskego again, you played them already, but you're going to have some abilities to see some of the other teams that they played, whether it was a 7-3 loss against Arrowhead or a 3-0 loss against Germantown. When the defense is trying to figure it out, you might look at games like that and see how did they hold them to such a low number. Is that a good strategy coming into this prep week?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've already started watching film. We watched the last game against Waukesha West, and you actually want to see who's there, because I'll be quite honest with a team like Muskego, even us, across the state this year, the amount of injuries that have gone on, teams are from one week to the next are not the same team they were. As we watch film and try to break them down, Muskego's defense has been consistently good all year. They've been consistent. Their offense had a situation where they had some injuries at guard. They lost their tailback, or their fullback, which is a tailback in their wing T look. So they're all back now. So yeah, it's good to look at some of that stuff, but it also is good to go back to the beginning of the year when we saw them fully loaded.
I've got Dan Ross next to me. I know he's got a question or two for you. Dan, as I look at Muskego, they're only giving up 11 points a game.
Tough defense, for sure.
Seems like it.
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
Yeah. Taking a look at the Division I bracket, and we've talked to a bunch of Division I coaches already, more local coaches, right?
Yep.
But just taking a look at your regional, or whatever they call this, right? You have Franklin, you have Kimberly, you have Neenah, just powerhouse teams, right?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, Muskego played Neenah the week before, so I watched them play. Neenah's good. Neenah's really good to get a 3 seed. And then you go down there and you see Appleton North is a 7. And, Appleton North is good. They played Kimberly 10-9 last night.
Yeah.
And then you go across down a little lower. We got Racine Case, who's a really good football team in a 3 seed. They draw Oconomowoc, who tied for the Classic A Conference Championship. They went 8-1, and they're a 6 seed.
Yeah, so we talked about that one today.
It's a tough one to understand.
There's some football going on down in these brackets. It's going to be pretty fun to watch. This is the first year. No, I never complained, but this is the first year I got nothing to complain about. We are where we are, and we earned what we are. But there's some other guys that are probably wondering what happened. There's going to be some good football games, if nothing else. That's good.
Yeah. So one real quick question for you, Coach, and I'm mentioning it because you're a Division I school.
Yes.
Do you like the geographic pairings of these, or would you like to see it expanded to like half the state, or something where it's expanded to like ranking 16 teams instead of just the 8, and maybe geographically you're at disadvantage or an advantage if you're in like the northwest part of the state, for example?
I'm fully into getting the best 16 teams and going from there. I think we travel enough as it is. I hear you guys talking to some of these schools that travel for 2 hours in conference and stuff like that. We complain about going down to Tremper, which is a 45-minute drive, So, we'll do it. We'll travel if we can get the best games, is the way I feel. I think they need to look into districts again, too, or something to that nature. We could do something like these other states do. There's a lot of talk down here about conference realignment. Don't worry, you're going to go. The Classic 8 is going to even get stronger. There needs to be some talk about, when you get there, like a team like Pewaukee that had an amazing season to get into playoffs, they're going to be strong as heck in their league after what they went through in their conference. I'm not against traveling at all, as long as you get the better teams playing where they should play.
There you go, Dan. Coach says have ball, will travel, and we like that attitude.
I love it.
Really like across the state all the 4-5 matchups, and Coach Joel Parr, the Oak Creek Knights, the 5 seed at Muskego, a short drive for the Knights over there, and a rematch.
Yeah.
Coach, best of luck on Friday night.
Thank you so much for all you do. You guys are outstanding. Thank you.
There he is, Joel Parr, very complimentary, and you don't need to butter up to us, but
No, absolutely not. Usually we get yelled at.
we're going to cover your team no matter what. But you know what? He's right, and you mentioned it too.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
Franklin and Muskego and Nina and Kimberly, the winner there, Dan. The winner there, probably the best team in the state coming out of that group.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to agree. One thing I wanted to bring up was the story that they had on there with Marquette today.
Yeah.
I had a tear in my eye.
Yeah.
I really
It's a tough
did.
one,
It was
right?
hard to get through.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
You know, a group of football kids, high school kids having to attend a funeral of their coach. It's,
and just how it really kind of hits home of like, man, like he was having back pains, and yet you have this big tumor in you, and your life changes from like, man, my back kind of hurts to like this is it, and life is short, and how it affects the football team, and it brought the football team together, and it was kind of the coach's last wish for them to win the state title, and they did.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the human psyche, and
Yeah.
I've got pains all the time. So
yeah, I do too. I'm scared to death. Like, what's going on with me?
And you just never quite know. Not a pain is, for, at least in my experience, known in the last couple of years, head football coach of the Kaukauna Galloping Ghosts, Matt Binsfeld, and of course the Galloping Ghosts, one of the best nicknames and mascots, not in the state, in the country. I'm just such a huge fan of what it was. Shiloh, Coach? We'll bring him on here. Is it still Shiloh the horse this year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Still at it.
Fantastic.
Jason is scared to death of Shiloh.
Well, up close I am, but I like watching as far as that's concerned. But that's good, right? You got the intimidating mascot. And when the Pulaski Patriots, I'm not exactly sure. It looked like a Patriot last time I was there. Coach, congratulations on the 1 seed. That is a reward for a season that has been well played so far.
Well deserved, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about the season you and the guys have had this year.
Well, it's been a really competitive year. We went out and scheduled 2 really quality non-conference games to start our season, and then it certainly doesn't get any easier as you go through the FBA. So we were able to, we made some mistakes early in week 1 that, kind of pressed us to clean things up, and I think that really helped allow us to play at a high level the rest of the way. But I have had a ton of fun with my guys, and we've been getting better each week. So it's been a lot of fun. And thanks. You guys called it probably first before I thought of it, that we were going to be a number 1 seed and all of that. So I appreciate that.
Coach, you can count on us day and night. We study this like you can't believe. I mean, in all seriousness, hundreds of hours of work just for a football season. And sometimes it pays off. And sometimes we know what we're doing, and sometimes we don't.
I would say so.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I would say you do. We were looking at it as a staff, and I said, hey, they're calling for us to be a 1 seed. I know we've had a good season, and I know we win the tiebreaker in the FBA, but I still wasn't quite sure if it was going to work out. So we're very pleased today when we got the results.
Well, it's we've talked to you before and other coaches around the state today and otherwise, and if there's one thing about coaches that remains the same no matter where you are, is you live your life on pins and needles, and bless your heart for it. Pulaski, the home game. Let's talk about the home setting first. I mean, it's such a great environment there in Kaukauna. Your fan support is through the roof. They come in, they pack the stadium. What is that like for you and your guys to look behind you and not an empty seat in the place?
Yeah, it's a really big deal, and Kaukauna is a football town. It really is, and our folks love it, and our kids are very fortunate to have great support from the whole community. It's not just parents back there and all that kind of stuff. It's our whole community. And I want to add that that level of support was even there. My first couple of years in Kaukauna when we were in 2 and 7, I'd turn around and see full stands, and I'm like, they're coming out for us for this, But we're very fortunate to have great support from the greater Kaukauna community, kind of thing. So it's been great, and home playoff games nothing better than that. So very excited to, hopefully try to host a couple of games.
Well, with the 1 seed, the advantage you have over being a 2 seed, as an example, is you get to host 3 games if you're fortunate enough to win those. The other side of that coin may have been in that level 3 game, having to travel down to Sun Prairie and get on a bus. That's a long ways to go. So how do you present that to your guys that, each week, obviously it's a blessing to be out there and you get to play one more game together. And because of what you guys did, we get to play in front of this home crowd as often as we want to.
Yeah. No, it's an outstanding opportunity for us. And it's one of those things where you're really putting the emphasis on, okay, we've got things how we want it. Now we got to follow through and deliver. We have to be focused and we have to be playing our best football at this time of year because there's no more do-overs. There's no more, hey, we can learn from this. We go home. So, we got to be ready.
Pulaski comes to town on Friday. Not too long of a bus ride from west of Green Bay down to you. They come in. They've got a winning record. They're 5-4. They're going to be a formidable opponent. And everybody around the state or even around the country, just come bracket time, right? They're always somewhat secretively, it seems, cheering for a big upset in that first round. How do you keep that from happening on Friday night?
Well, we scrimmage Pulaski every year in August before the season starts. So we're fairly familiar with them. And Jared runs a really quality program up there. So we know we're going to get some physical smash mouth football from them, mixed in with some fairly good talent, too, throwing it around when you kind of don't expect it. So we think it'll be a good game. We're excited to play them. It's nice to play somebody close that you're kind of familiar with. And I think our kids are really excited about it.
Coach, I turn to Dan Ross, and I think back to University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and NCAA men's basketball. People went wild when they beat Virginia because people seem to like that for some reason. But Dan's got a question or two for you, Coach. Go ahead, Dan.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Coach, congratulations on a fantastic season.
Thank you.
Every time that I have been there with Jason, it has been a fantastic time. It's a great atmosphere. We were there. We watched you guys beat Kimberly 2 years ago, I think it was.
Yep, that was
last year. Yeah, something last year. Yeah. And speaking of Kimberly, how happy are you that they are not in your bracket anywhere?
Yeah, we love competing against our neighbors. That's for sure. And we're happy we've kind of turned it back into a rivalry where it was not for a long time. You have to do your part to make it a rivalry. So we're happy to compete against them, but they are an excellent football team, so we can wait until next year.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
There's a lot of teams that really have conference pride, right? And they say our conference is the best conference in the state. I think most of them are wrong. I think that the conference that you are in is probably the best conference in the state. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, so I think we're always going to be in the conversation. Year to year, things can go up and down. It's high school kids come and go and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you look at a long average, the FBA has to be up there near the top. From what maybe the most dominant team in the last 20 or 30 years has to be Kimberly. We've tried to do our part the last couple of years to up our reputation as well. So I think there's a lot of great programs in here. I think if you look at what Appleton North gave to Kimberly last night, for a team that's probably fourth in our league, that shows there's some great football being played here. I'm really happy to see Fond du Lac get in as well. Those guys are working really hard down there, and there's some tough kids down there that deserve this shot. So yeah, we like being in the conversation for sure.
Kaukauna head coach Matt Binsfeld, get down to the game on Friday as the Ghost host Pulaski. We talk a lot about concession food around here. The brats are spectacular
so good there
at the concession stand in Kaukauna. Yeah. Coach, best of luck on Friday night.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I take a look at Aiden Reardon, almost 1,000 yards rushing for the Ghosts. They pound it. And when they're not, you got Ron Schaefer launching it for almost 1,500 yards on the season. I mean, they're going to attack you ground, air, one if by land, two if by sea, and they're going to tough team in this playoff series.
Yeah, the stats are a little bit different, Division I, Division II, than then somebody at Division 6 or Division 7 be like, 1,000 yards, I had that in week 4. Like yeah, but you're not, right? But you're not going against Division 1 college athletes every night, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit different situation.
Just the speed.
Yeah, well, the speed, and at those, say that Division 6 level as an example, the defensive line, the nose tackle is 5'8" and 142, and it's a little bit easier to run through that guy than it is somebody that's 6'3" and 240, which is pretty regular in the bigger divisions.
Yeah, Kaukauna has a shot to really make some noise here. They really do.
They're really poised for it. That 1 seed is so helpful. Beaver Dam believes they were underseeded. They're the 5. Yep. They play the 4 seed Menasha. So, but I don't think they're in very good shape against Kaukauna. On the bottom end of it, Sun Prairie East.
That's a long trip.
But they're taking on Ashwaubenon, who's got a long trip down to Dane County. But Ashwaubenon, the last team in, they're going to go and make the most of it. So who knows? Speaking of making the most of it, the Stratford Tigers are on some sort of run the last few years. State champion 2 years ago, they beat Mondovi, state champion last year, taking care of Darlington. And, Dan, I think the Stratford Tigers are the best team this year in Division 5. We bring in head football coach Jason Tubbs. Coach, because of that success, the powers that be thought you needed a more difficult division to be in this year. Tell us about 9-0 and the season you guys are having this year.
Yeah, kids are playing really great. I'm blessed to have some hardworking athletes in Stratford, and I would argue one of the best coaching staffs in the state as well. That game plan week to week, putting our guys in the best possible places to win games, and our success unfortunately comes with a new competitive balance, getting bumped up to Division 5, and boy, Division 5 looks tough, and it's going to should be a fun ride.
Coach, like I said, we're in the media here. I get to have some opinions. I gave you one of those. I still think you're the best team in your division, but you're going to have to go out and play those games, and everybody's going to be gunning for you. Being a two-time state champion in any division. So you ever talk to you guys about that? Like, guys, we've had some recent success, and we may have an extra target on our back.
Yeah, I think just going to Stratford in general, since I got there in 2003, we've had a target on our back. I've been fortunate enough to be in a lot of state championship games, coached in them, and be an assistant with the Cal in those games. And it's kind of a fun target though, because I know our kids are going to work hard to continue that.
Coach, you've always had a good handle on your team. This year, at the quarterback spot, it's one of the players you happen to know very well, your son Jack, over 1,500 yards passing on the season. He's the all-time leading passer now in Stratford Tigers history. Is he able to take what you teach him in the living room and on the practice field and be a version of you out on the football field?
I think there's parts of his competitiveness for sure that comes out, but he's a lot more calmer and has a tendency to come up big in big games. And that's the thing you watched last year at the state game and that long drive and how he made some great throws and some great runs. And this year too, he's been passing really well and just kind of leading his team. But Greg Belter and Craig Martins, our guy up in the booth, do a great job of getting him in successful spots. Craig sees stuff up in the booth, say, hey, this plays there, and Jack just throws it to our wonderful playmakers. And it's easy when you have a very fast team, to coach, but when you have like state track meet type, state champions type teams with Colton Bright and Jet Shaner and the rest of the guys, it makes it even easier.
Coach Jason Tubbs talks about team speed. It's easy when you've got a guy in your team named Jet. That makes it all make sense to me. Coach, last about your son Jack. I've got to watch him growing up, and I've enjoyed him being a student athlete for these last number of years. Coach may not remember this, but he brought a son and daughter in to an interview in studio with me a number of years ago, and I remember Jack. Coach had brought a couple of football helmets with him, and Jack threw one on his head, and it could barely. You lost him in the helmet. His head was so small back then. But I just a memory I had for you, Coach. I've really enjoyed your family and everything else that you've got going on there in Stratford. Being the number 1 seed, you may think it's a little bit simpler, but what I want you to do is to tell us on Friday night maybe why that game is not going to be so easy.
Well, I think it's the first time since I've been at Stratford that we're kind of getting pulled southeast, which usually doesn't happen. And, you have some quality teams. I don't know much about Horicon, never played them before. In second round, it could be another matchup with Amherst. And their coaching staff and their state championship trophy case is pretty full, too. And then it could be another rematch with St. Mary Springs. Again, another championship coach, probably one of the winningest coaches in the country. And, so it's not going to be an easy path, that is for sure. You got to stay healthy. We're going against some bigger schools. We have 271 kids to pick from, and half of them are girls. So, that don't play football. But, our guys, I think, are up for the challenge. We scrimmage against DC Everest and Wausau schools on purpose for this type of run, so we're ready for anything.
Yeah, on the other side of the bracket this year are the other familiar foes, Northwestern and both the St. Croix, the Falls, and the Central. So maybe later on you get to meet some of those teams again. Coach, I've got Dan Ross next to me. He was on the sideline with me. Your win against Amherst. I know he's got a question or two for you.
Yeah, hey, Coach, I got two quick questions because you stole my first one about going southeast instead of northwest is what usually happens. First question, what is your opinion on the performance factor? Your team's obviously affected this year. Do you think it's good for the game or good for sports in general, or do you think it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't need to be fixed?
Well, I mean, there's definitely issues in a lot of sports when you have, some schools are drawing from 100,000 people and they have less kids in their building than we do. And I think that makes why a lot of people across the state were like, hey, we got to do something. I don't know if this is the best answer. It's something that I guess that they got through that people could at least agree on, and because there wasn't a lot of lawsuits afterward. I thought for sure there would be lawsuits going after this. When you get to competitive balance, one of our guys on our staff mentioned, well, then you need to list 1 through 32, and the number 1 team should be playing the 32 team, because if you get an easier, let's just say hypothetically, you get an easier regional, or versus a difficult regional, you get knocked out, you don't get the performance points then.
Yeah.
Right? So that to me is not really true competitive balance, especially for those bubble teams. Those schools that now, hey, we haven't been in the playoffs in a while, and if we're on the bubble, we get to go down a division, and we're one of the, being one of the biggest schools versus one of the smallest schools. So I have mixed emotions because I feel like in D6, we would have still had Darlington and St. Mary Springs, but obviously when you add a Kiel into the equation, you add Prairie du Chien, and you add, some of these big St. Croix Falls and, Lake Country Lutheran that's drawing from Milwaukee area, in Milwaukee School of Science, never even heard of them, and now they got one of the best running backs in the country playing. It's going to be a lot different now going forward for all the teams in our division. Aquinas being moved up and Regis being moved up, and if Eggert has another good year this year, they're getting moved up.
Yeah, really good answer. I really appreciate the insight on that because there are a lot of voices in the room on it. One last question, kind of a fun one. Do you have a foreign exchange student in the back burner who can step up and make a big kick this year?
We do not. There's not even one in the building, and kind of disappointed in some of our host families that couldn't bring one in. But no, right now it's we have faith in our 2 Millers. They like to joke that it's Miller time when it's time to kick a PAT. But all joking aside, Mason and has done a nice job. He's made the majority of his PATs, and Reed's done a pretty good job kicking off. And it's a fun group to have, and they even have one of Lori's shirts from last year that they take turns wearing it for good luck.
Did the kicker last year have any idea how big that kick was, or was it just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kick field goal?
He had no clue, and when he got to us, in middle of August, he honestly was not good. He was not a good kicker. His first couple kicks, if you would have seen him, you would have said, no way that kid have a chance. But honestly, him and Caden Leonard. Caden had an ACL injury last year, couldn't play, and he would go over there and hold the ball for Lori and 10, 20, 30 kicks a night, and just shows after 9 weeks of practicing, all of a sudden we start trusting him to kick PATs to get his timing down, and sure enough, okay, I asked him, before we get on, how far do you think you can make it? He goes, 35, I'm good. I'm like, okay. So 32-yard field goal, no problem.
Yeah. What a great story.
Lorenz Plattner, a hero in central Wisconsin, and just another guy in his hometown in Germany. There's no doubt about that. Coach, Stratford Tigers host Horican Hustaford on Friday night, and then here in the media we get to say we're looking forward to a rematch with Amherst in Level 2, but I know you've got to take care of your first-round game. Best of luck on Friday night.
Hey, thanks, guys, for all your coverage all year.
There he is, head coach of the Stratford Tigers, two-time defending, two consecutive years now defending state champion Stratford Tigers, and I think, as I look at my Division 5, I think the favorite this year in Division 5.
Yes.
My opinion.
Yeah, St. Mary Springs, obviously a really good program. Their coach has been there for about 120 years.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Prairie du Chien, I know a lot of people talk about that team. I don't really know a whole lot about them. But I've seen Stratford. I'm a believer in Stratford, and the offense is better this year, I think.
Sure looks like it.
Yeah.
And, the kicking game, maybe a question mark. That's maybe it. It's maybe it. And that Amherst game, right, especially in that first half on
special
kickoff.
Teams,
On kickoff, we saw a couple things. I'm sure Coach already has that straightened out. But, the only question mark is on the place kicker. But it's Miller time.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious after the first or second kick that had long run backs that they were just kicking it to the first or second tier.
Correct.
Yeah.
Let's solve it just that way, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again to coaches Ryan Eigenberger, Len Luedtke, Braden Mitchell, Jake Nault-Miller, Jerry Sins, Jay Anderson, Logan Rosem, Kyle Stofle, Joel Parr, Matt Binsfeld, and Jason Tubbs. What a show it's been. Best of luck to everybody come playoff time. As of now, every game is on Friday. They do allow for teams that maybe are far apart to either play earlier on Friday. I haven't seen a Thursday game in quite a long time because the travel isn't that far anymore, it seems. But as of right now, all kickoffs are Friday at 7 p.m. WIAAWI.org for all the brackets. ZaleskiSports.com for all the broadcast listings. We're going to solidify our broadcast lineup next week by Wednesday at 1 p.m. At the latest, and maybe sooner. Dan, we'll turn it to you as we always do around here for last word.
Yeah, if you're interested in your school being focused on Zaleski sports.
Ooh, a camera pun.
Yeah. If you want to see your team on Zaleski sports, whether it is in the playoffs or the winter sports coming up, we're a month away from talking basketball, which I love. But it's a long season. But if you are interested in it, definitely contact us off of the website.
Yep.
We don't say no to a whole lot if it makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't in a while. Every now and then it's, okay, sounds good, can you help with this and this? But we'll find a way to make it work. We always have.
Yeah.
So certainly want to. All right, Katie Lecton, producer, thank you so much for being here. Dan Ross, my name's Jason Zaleski. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, 7 p.m. on ESPN2. Watch. And I don't ever plug ESPN, but there's one. Seems like it's supposed to be a good game.
South Dakota State -2 if you're interested.
I found out a half hour ago. It's the number 1 and number 2 teams playing at 7 o'clock tonight. So there you go. Have a good weekend, everybody.